I'm Matt Dillahunty, and you're watching Atheist Edge.
Skepticism is the highest of duties. Blind faith, the one unpardonable sin. By Thomas Huxley. You are an atheist. There are approximately 4,200 religions on the planet, and at least 300 gods currently being worshipped. You are atheist with regards to 299 of these gods. The only difference between you and me is that I go one god further. Christian, what's it like to be an atheist? The atheist, do you believe in Islam? Christian, no. Atheist, like that.
Christian symbols copied from older religions. Crucifix, death stakes and poles. Incense, lamps, and candles. Prayers of the faithful rising to heaven. Ancient religions used these to mask body odors and ward off evil spirits. Five-pointed rosary star, tool for keeping track of how many Hail Marys have been repeated. Chinese star of the five elements. Greek five corners, where the seeds of chaos are placed on earth. Pentagram symbol also adopted by Baha'i, Wicca, Latter-day Saints, and Church of Satan. Ram, protection, or lamb, Jesus, 3,000-year-old zodiac symbol of the Ram of Aries. Dove, peace, hope. Pentecost, baptism. Goddess Atagartis, Istar, Inanna, Astir, and Aphrodite, depicted with doves. A dove plays a predominant role in the pre-biblical Epic of Gilgamesh flood story. Anchor, used by the Seleucid Empire because their emperor, Seleucus I, 358-281 BCE, had a birthmark in the shape of an anchor.
The Book of Mark was the first biblical gospel written. The other three canonical gospels, Matthew, Luke, and John, were inspired by the Book of Mark. This original gospel includes Jesus' trial, the crucifixion, his death, the burial, the discovery of the empty tomb, and hearsay testimony that Jesus had risen from the dead. In the oldest known copies of this gospel, that is where the story ends, chapter 16, verse 8. The following 12 verses, Mark 16, 9 through 20, that tell of the resurrected Jesus meeting with his disciples, were added about a century later by overzealous scribes.
God has a female alter ego. The ancient Gnostic Christians named this manifestation of God Babelo, and she often appears in non-canonical scripture.
Joseph Smith claimed to have shown his magic golden plates to 11 witnesses. When questioned, however, the witnesses claimed to have only seen the plates with their spiritual eyes, as in a vision, and not with their natural eyes.
Bueno, aquí claramente podemos ver clamar falsos milagros. Esto claramente cae en lo que las iglesias inventan para poder atraer a sus feligreses, porque son historias mágicas y fantásticas que atraen la fascinación de la gente que los sigue. Y esto es claramente pura basofia. Y entonces tú tratando de decir que tenías tantos testigos o este número de testigos, tratan, ¿verdad?, con ellos de validar, ¿verdad?, un milagro el cual no puede ser verificado. Y obviamente pues no se diferencia en nada a que los profetas actuales del cristianismo tratan de hacer cuando claman milagros, cuando claman bendiciones, como que te compraste una mansión, así que eso es una bendición de Dios, que obviamente si no hubieras trabajado no lo hubieras tenido. Pero te pueden decir, oh, esta gente es testigo de que yo tuve esta bendición, pero realmente esta gente no es más que la gente que trabajaba con ellos o la gente que está rodeada. Muchas veces estos mismos testigos de estos milagros son no más que parte de verdad de la euforia de esta gente que lo sigue y hace un culto hacia las personas, por ejemplo como Joseph Smith, que obviamente por algo fue que creó su propia religión, básicamente, porque tiene esta euforia, estos seguidores, esos testigos, que obviamente cualquier cosa que haga la van a seguir por la euforia que ocasiona un personaje y un culto. Nada diferente a Donald Trump, que las personas tienen un culto a él, tienen un fanatismo hacia él y cualquier cosa que él haga la van a validar.
If your slaves are fellow countrymen, do not treat them ruthlessly as you do your foreign slaves. Leviticus 25:44-46.
Moses ordered his people to commit suicide for worshiping a statue. All right, so this comes from what Jim cites here is the Quran, 2nd Surah, verse 55. I'm not as familiar with the Quran as I am with the Old Testament, New Testament, so I'm going to go ahead and read out the context here in the Quran. So the Quran says, and I'm just by way of mentioning, I'm reading the English translation by Yusuf Ali, which has been recommended to me as a really excellent English translation by some Muslims I know. All right, so the Quran says, "And remember, Moses said to his people, O my people, ye have indeed wronged yourselves by your worship of the calf. So turn in repentance to your Maker, and slay yourselves, the wrongdoers. That will be better for you in the sight of your Maker. Then he turned towards you in forgiveness, for he is oft returning, most merciful. And remember ye said, O Moses, we shall never believe in thee until we see Allah manifestly. But ye were dazed with thunder and lightning, even as ye looked on. Then we raised you up after your death. Ye had the chance to be grateful." Okay, so this is presumably, and this is, from what I know of the Quran and from what I've read of it, it makes all these references to stories and characters and things that you probably know from the Old Testament, and maybe even a bit from the New Testament as well. But it doesn't necessarily have them in order, in the same narrative order that they are in the New Testament. It's sort of, they're filled in wherever there's a theological point that the Quran wants to make. Sort of makes reference to the story. So here, it's referencing the worship of the calf, which is presumably the golden calf, in Exodus 32, and just by way of context and contrast, I'll read that out as well. So this is Exodus chapter 32. "And when Moses saw that the people had broken loose, for Aaron had let them break loose to the derision of their enemies." Who are these enemies that are hanging around making fun of the Israelites there at the foot of Mount Sinai? That doesn't make any sense to me. That's just an aside. "Then Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, Who is on Yahweh's side? Come to me. And all the sons of Levi gathered around him. And he said to them, Thus says Yahweh God of Israel, Put your sword on the side, each of you, and go to and fro from gate to gate throughout the camp, and each of you kill his brother and his companion and his neighbor. And the sons of Levi did according to the words of Moses. And that day about 3,000 men of the people fell. And Moses said, Today you have been ordained for the service of Yahweh, each one at the cost of his son and of his brother, so that he might bestow a blessing upon you this day." All right, so in Exodus, presumably the original version of the story, you don't have people killing themselves, committing suicide because they worship the golden calf, and you don't have Moses ordering people to do that, but you kind of do. You kind of do, because Moses orders some of the Israelites to kill some of the other of the Israelites, which is sort of, from the perspective of the entire community, is kind of like a suicide sort of a thing. Maybe the ones that got killed were willing to get killed. It doesn't actually say. I mean, it just says that Moses told the Levites, well, actually he said, those of you who are on Yahweh's side, and the Levites stood up and said, we'll do it. The Levites, of course, being the group associated with Aaron and the priesthood, so it's 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 an opportunity for the priests to sort of prove their worth and prove their value, because they're willing to kill if Yahweh wants them to kill. And so they go around and slaughter 3,000 of the other Israelites who worshipped the golden calf or who were unrepentant or whatever. Maybe they went along with it. Maybe they said, yes, we deserve it, please kill us. And so that's a kind of a suicide too. I don't know. But the Quran does explicitly say that you should slay yourselves, that the wrongdoers should slay yourselves, so that it is making it explicitly suicidal there. Now, interestingly enough, so you've got this situation with the golden calf, where the Israelites worshipped the golden calf, and that was a really bad thing that Yahweh didn't like, and so there had to be this death, either suicide as the Quran paints it to be, or internecine slaughter as Exodus has it. But in Numbers, there's another idol thing. There's this. It's a brass serpent or a bronze serpent that Moses builds or has built, and has. It doesn't exactly say worship. He doesn't say he has the Israelites worship it, but they do look at it, and it has like ritual connotations to it. It's really strange. So it's Numbers chapter 21. You've got the Israelites wandering through the desert again. They've left Egypt. They're wandering through the desert, and they are complaining, because that's sort of all they do as they wander through the desert, is just complain about Moses and about God. And they're saying to Moses, why did you bring us out here to die? This is awful. This is the desert. There's no food. There's no water. And so as a result, Yahweh sends these creatures to torment them. And it's in the text, they're called fiery serpents. And it's implied that they are flying as well. So they're fiery flying serpents. There's a lot of questions about, like, what exactly is this talking about? Some people try to, like, identify, okay, what is historically or ecologically, what is there a snake that lives in this region that could be construed as being a fiery flying serpent, some sort of a poisonous serpent? And I mean, there are snakes there. There's snakes there. There's poisonous snakes there for sure. But would you call them fiery? Do they fly through the desert? Not in real life. Not in real life. So what this sounds like is just a mythological story, that the story treats this as if these are actual creatures that are actually attacking the Israelites, and biting them and killing them. And Moses, in order to fix the problem, in order to solve the problem, doesn't pray to Yahweh for them to go away. What he does is he builds a copy of one of these fiery serpents out of brass or bronze, puts it on a pole, and holds it up so that the Israelites can see this metal serpent on a pole. And if they look at the metal serpent, then they live. And if they don't look at it, then they die. And I mean, what does that sound like? That sounds like idol worship. You've got some sort of a weird supernatural metal creature on a pole, and you've got to venerate it in some way. Maybe you're not sacrificing to it, but you've got to look at it, you've got to see it, and then it magically makes it so that these other magical creatures don't kill you anymore. That's really, really uncomfortably close to idol worship. And it's so bizarre, especially when you consider that the same context, the same narrative context, is where you get the golden calf. And the golden calf is supposedly a bad thing, but the fiery serpent is a good thing for some reason. Both of these animals, both of these symbols are both associated with Egyptian culture. So there's a cow god in Egypt that carries the sun in its horns, and there are actually winged serpents, these mythological creatures that exist in Egyptian iconography, either with 2 wings or with 4 wings. I don't know if it's necessarily the case in Egypt that they are fiery. I don't know exactly what the relevance of the fieriness is. The same word that's used to refer to the fieriness of the snakes, the serpents, is the same as what's referred to as with angels. So when you see angels and they're on fire, like seraphim is on burning up, like a glowing, fiery thing. And so these fiery serpents, Nachash, Saraf, fiery serpents. It's kind of a weird conflation of these concepts, and it gets weirder because that's not the end of the story. That's not the last time we see these fiery serpents, because the pole that Moses built with the fiery flying serpent wrapped around it, apparently, they kept. So they kept it. And they stuck it in the temple. And in 2 Kings chapter 18, so there's all throughout these books, there's what's called the Deuteronomic theology, the idea that if Israel follows what Yahweh commands, good things happen, and if they don't, then bad things happen. So there's this idea of like good kings versus bad kings, and good doesn't mean that they were militarily good or politically good. It just means that they followed the Yahweh cult, basically. So there was this king that came into power, Hezekiah, and he did a number of things to prove how committed he was to the Yahweh cult. And one of the things it says in 2 Kings chapter 18, he removed the high places and broke the pillars and cut down the Asherah, and these are probably sex cult associated things. The high places and the pillars and the Asherah are probably related to sex worship, which did apparently exist, and that's why he had to cut them down. And then it says, and he broke into pieces the bronze serpent that Moses had made. For until those days, the people of Israel had made offerings to it, and it was called Nehushtan. Nehushtan being a kind of a conglomeration of the Hebrew words for snake and bronze, which are Nechash and Nechosheth. And so you sort of combine them, you get Nehushtan. But apparently, according to the story in 2 Kings, this idol, this snake idol, this fiery winged serpent thing, was worshipped in the temple by Israelites, and they made offerings to it. So this was a part of the temple religious life, this idol worship. And so, one of the things that's so bizarre about sort of looking into the Bible and what it says about the history of the Jews, you do get this sense that, well, they're faithful, but then they're not faithful, but then they are faithful, but then they're not faithful. But then the question is, okay, when they're not faithful, like, what does that look like? And apparently they were worshiping all kinds of weird things, including this serpent god called Nehushtan. And it has been suggested that maybe serpent worship goes back even deeper into Hebrew history than is realized, and that the serpent in the Garden of Eden may in fact be meant to be a manifestation of Nehushtan. It's possible, but a lot of weirdness going on there for sure.